Hello, my name is David Hay from King's Learning Institute, and this brief presentation is just part of our bigger package which explores principles of assessment and approaches to assessment and feedback. Also in relation to course design, program design, module design, and underpinned by just some simple but important theoretical and practical aspects of teaching quality enhancement. So in a very simple way, I'm just going to take you through a couple of slide animations to show really different views of curriculum and different ways we can think and understand it. So first of all, thinking about different categories, really, in which we might think of just the structure and the content of the unit, but also the structure and the content of units in relation to a whole program. So looking at the building blocks of a program of study. But then also thinking about curriculum not just from the point of view of learning outcomes and from the big arc of its delivery, but also from the student's own experience of learning and from their perspective of the educational experience, where perhaps we could view or begin to view all of those things together as a kind of much more dynamic and interactive process of teaching and learning practice. So most of us are used to thinking about teaching content and its subsequent assessment. And probably if courses are not carefully designed, this simple model is the kind of default position. One might caricature it somewhat as the experienced lecturer who, after 15 years of practice, simply hands on the content to a new teaching replacement who's expected to deliver it, and then once taught, our view of assessment is it's the test of whether the material that's been delivered and taught has been appropriately learned. And of course that's one view of curriculum, but one that we may actually wish to dispel in favour of something rather more constructive. So if we start to repattern and reorganize that, we might add to it, as in the ways we saw in the last slide really, the ways in which graduate outcomes and learning and teaching strategies might be much more deliberately related to the program design. So content linked to outcomes and learning and teaching strategies linked to assessment. And in fact, we might begin to start to replace some of those components with a more sophisticated and more subtle articulation. So beginning first with the specification of what it is we wish our students or our learners to be able to do in terms of generic level descriptors, i.e. which level the students are working at in their undergraduate or postgraduate studies, but also in relation to the content of a course and the aims or the things that we might wish our students to be able to do at the end of it in a subject or disciplinary specific setting, which allows us to plan and write learning outcomes in relation to the aims of a module. And to do that, in order to be able to write criteria, which of course are all threshold statements, are statements of achievement or particularly articulation of that ability or student's ability to do, so that then we can articulate our assessment method and our strategy and relate all of those as one whole to what it is our teaching is designed to achieve. But that's not the end of the teaching and learning design process, of course, because it implies constant revisit and always remodeling and rethinking the practice of design and specification. Which leads us to one of the many frameworks, but probably the most important framework that exists in the literature for that specification of learning outcomes, which is Bloom's taxonomy. So Bloom's taxonomy, which is one of many different frameworks for looking at student learning outcomes, allows us to articulate a set of statements about what a student is able to do in terms of specific definitions and criteria that might find their ways into assessment. So, for example, if the purpose of our teaching is that our student is able to recall and remember, the kinds of words and phrases we might use in writing learning outcomes would be define, duplicate, list, memorize, recall, etc. If our focus is on applying knowledge, we might start to use words like choose, demonstrate, dramatize, employ, illustrate, interpret, etc. And if the course is such that we want our students to be able to create new knowledge, then the emphasis of the assessments would fall on assembly, construction, design, formulation, writing, the making, the building together, or the performative aspects of knowledge creation.